And welcome back to the Retire Early, Retire Now podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Kelly, certified financial planner and owner of Palm Valley Wealth Management. I do this podcast every Tuesday to help high income earning professionals make smarter decisions about their financial situation and maximize their wealth. And today we're tackling a big question that most people don't face anymore because pensions are becoming a thing of the past. But for those that still have one, this is a major decision that can impact your entire retirement. I'm actually currently working with a few clients to help make this exact choice, running through my review phase this spring with my clients, and a couple of them are retiring, work for some corporations that still have pensions. And I thought it'd be a great segue from our last two podcast episodes, going from what benchmarks we should hit by age 40, age 50, and now transitioning into some decisions that we have to make about retirement. And so one of those decisions that people make is, should I take a pension lump sum payment or should I take a monthly pension payment? So if you're still one of those few that have a pension through your company, you'll eventually have to make this critical choice. So which one is it? The pension monthly payment? What type of structure should be within that payment? Should it be a single lifetime payment? Should it be a joint option with spousal benefits? So we'll break down all of these considerations that you should be making to help you make this decision. And then throughout this podcast, I'll interweave a real client case study that I'm helping a client with right now, making this decision. Should I take a lump sum or should I take that pension payment? And which pension payment option should I take? Right? So if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and like this video. Leave a comment below. Should companies start offering pensions again? Should we make pensions great again? Right? This, again, they're becoming a thing of the past. They are what's called a defined benefit plan, and most companies are going to what's called a defined contribution plan, things like 401ks, where there's some sort of defined contribution into these plans where you have to invest it yourself, and you really don't know the benefit. But with these pension plans, you know exactly what you're getting and what that payment is going to look like. So should we have pensions? Let me know in the comments below. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, leave a 5-star review. But let's jump right into it. Pensions, whether it's a lump sum or a monthly payment, is a big decision. It's rare to have them, like I just mentioned, but when it's time to choose, you need to choose the correct one for you because it can have a major impact on your retirement. So the lump sum gives you an immediate control over your money, while a monthly pension provides guaranteed lifetime income. So which choice is right for you is a very personal situation that you need to consider. One, your financial situation, your life expectancy, and your risk tolerance. What we should talk about first before we get into some of those considerations is, well, how is this darn thing calculated? It isn't just a magic number. Generally, these pension plans use 3 factors to calculate your pension payment, and that would be 1, your years of service. So how long have you worked at this employer? The longer you work, the higher your pension will be. The second factor would be your final average salary. So usually it is a 3 to 5 year highest earnings average. So if you could average 100,000 in your last 5 years, that would be your average, right? And the last thing they consider is a multiplier, and that would be a percentage. So 1.5 multiplier or a 2% multiplier. And so if you take these as an example, maybe you worked at a company for 30 years, you had an average final salary of 100,000, and then your multiplier is 1.5. So if you multiply all of those together, you would get $45,000 per year, or just over $3,700 per month as your monthly payment for life. So that's how they'll calculate it. Now, there could be nuances and differences from plan to plan, but generally speaking, that's exactly how it's calculated. And then along with that calculation, there would be some sort of lump sum payout number as well. And so you can either take that monthly pension or you can take the lump sum. And so now let's transition into what key factors should we be considering. The first one, and I think the most important, because you're going to have to figure out what your break-even point is, your life expectancy, right? So how healthy are you? What is your family history? If you had to guess, when do you think you would pass away? I know it's kind of morbid to think about, but the longer you live, the better the pension is going to be for you. But if you think you have a short time left, the lump sum would make more sense for you. So obviously this is a guessing game, but you can generally take some key factors from your health and family history and things of that nature and take an educated guess, right? And so let's start to weave in my client situation that we'll talk about throughout this podcast. They work for a very large logistic company that everyone has heard of. He is retiring in May, and he has an option. Do I take $1,400 a month, or just under $1,400 a month, or do I take about $215,000 lump sum? He's 65, and then he has a spouse that is about 6 years younger than him. Those are some key things that he will have to be considering. Now, for his life expectancy, he is very healthy, very active, has a family history of his family living well into their 80s. His life expectancy is going to be fairly high, right? That leads to us considering maybe the pension would make most sense. But there's some other things that we should consider. Now, for him, his pension payment does not have what we call a COLA, or a cost of living adjustment, but that is one thing that you would have to consider with these payments. So a lot of times pension payments will have a cost of living adjustment where they'll increase that payment either by 1%, 2%, or maybe with inflation. And so each year you would have some sort of increase in that payment. The next thing is the investment potential. So if you take the lump sum payment, what do you think you could get as far as an investment return to generate potentially more income than this pension? Would you not be able to, right? Would you have to take on too much risk to get the amount of return that you would need to make that lump sum worth it, right? And so that's where your risk tolerance and your risk capacity comes into play. What other investments do you have? Are you going to be waking up every day worried about the market fluctuating up and down, especially like the market we've had the last couple of weeks, where there's been a lot of volatility? Is that going to keep you up at night? And so if those types of things will keep you up at night, then the pension would make more sense. But if you think with what the lump sum that they're going to give you and the return that you would need to make it worth your while, one is not going to keep you up at night, and two is fairly reasonable, then the lump sum may make more sense. The other thing that you will want to consider, what are your legacy goals? What about your spouse? How do they play into it? For my client situation, we'll call her Jane. Jane is 6 years younger than John. Having that pension may make more sense for her because, again, they have a long life expectancy that we'll talk about here in a second. The last thing would be taxes. Once everything's taken care of as far as these other factors, then we'll want to start thinking about taxes. If you're taking that monthly pension, it's going to be taxed as ordinary income. So would it make more sense for you to roll over a lump sum so that you could put it into an IRA and make it tax deferred and maybe do some Roth conversions and things of that nature? So you would want to consider taxes as well. And so for me, the next thing that I would consider as a financial advisor, or if you're making this decision, is what is the break-even point? So again, John is retiring and is receiving this pension, whether that be the $215,000 lump sum or just over $1,300 a month, right? What is the break-even point? So I'm going to pull up a chart, and what you'll see is on the y-axis, you'll have a dollar amount where it starts out at $50 or $0, working up in $50,000 increments all the way up to $400,000. And on your x-axis, you have age. So for this instance, John is 65. He is going to start his pension at 65. And we're going to go all the way to what I think is a fair life expectancy for John, and that is age 90. And so what we're looking at here is a dotted orange line versus a solid yellow line. The solid yellow line is the lump sum pension. So if we take that $215,000, we invest that with an 8% return. In this case, I want to be a little bit more aggressive because I want to try to exaggerate that break-even point to see, is it even worth potentially looking at the lump sum? Because a lot of times these pension payments make more sense, especially if there's a long life expectancy. So I want it to be a little bit more aggressive to see if it even makes a difference. And then the orange dotted line is looking at the accumulated pension payments that John would receive. So obviously starting out, he's going to receive $1,300 that first month, and then so on and so forth, and that will accumulate over time. So what is that break-even point? When does the amount that he has received from the pension exceed the amount that he would have in some sort of IRA or investment portfolio over time if he took that lump sum? And so here, the break-even point is when John turns 80, or let's say 15 years. So when I consider this situation, I consider his health, what his life expectancy is, what his spouse's situation is like, other factors, what other type of assets he has. He has some IRAs and 401ks and things of that nature. For me, I think taking the pension for him makes more sense. And so why do I think that? I think this for a couple of reasons, but the main reason is that, one, his wife is about 6 years younger than him. So the likelihood of her living past 15 years is fairly likely. And again, I don't know that I mentioned it, but this is a joint payout. So he'll receive over $1,300 per month on both of their lives. So if he passes away before her, she'll continue to receive that payment. And so because she's 6 years younger, both of them are very healthy, very active. The likelihood of at least one of them living past age 80 is fairly likely, right? And so now mathematically, this is starting to become in the favor of taking that monthly pension as a joint payout. Now, if he was not as healthy or his wife was not as healthy, then maybe we would want to consider either a single payout where he gets a little bit more each month because it's not on both lives, or we would want to consider that lump sum, because if he passes away, the risk here is that if he passes away or they both pass away before age 80, then the lump sum would make more sense because they would end up with more money and be able to pass that on to their heirs, things of that nature, right? And so in this case, I think taking the pension would make more sense just based off the break-even point. Now, there are a couple other things I would want to consider, some tax things that we just won't get into in this podcast today. But for that particular scenario, the break-even point is age 80. I think either of them could easily live past age 80, so we'll take that pension in this case. Some other things to consider: if you need guaranteed income and prefer simplicity, so if you just don't want to worry about investments, the pension plan might be better for you, might be the best option for you. If you're comfortable with investing and you want more flexibility, obviously that lump sum will make a better fit for you. There's some other flexibility you could do, and I think I mentioned it a little bit before, is maybe you roll that over into an IRA, and because you have other assets, or maybe you don't need as much income based off what that pension would give you, you can start to maybe convert this to a Roth IRA at a lower tax rate. And this could potentially be an inheritance play or just a more long-term investing play. So other factors, obviously spousal needs, taxes, and estate planning goals you would want to consider. Should I take the pension plan versus the monthly payment? So if you're facing this decision, don't guess, run the numbers, understand your situation. Where is your break-even point? What does your tax situation look like? Do you have other assets that you could pull from if you did take the lump sum and still generate enough income to meet your retirement needs? If this is something that you're considering and you need help, you can always reach out to us at Palm Valley Wealth. We can help you create a strategy, run these numbers, and determine which one is the best one for you. So go ahead and check out my website, palmvalleywm.com, and we'll see you in the next one. As a reminder, making decisions about pensions, whether that be the lump sum or pension payment, is a very serious and important decision. So just as a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. Do not make any pension decisions based off this podcast alone. Please seek professional help from a financial advisor or tax advisor. And please keep Palm Valley Wealth Management in mind when making those considerations.